remember we used to have like BT would do like sit downs with the artists trying to get them to squash the beef, and they would do like behind the scenes. Like remember the Rick Ross Deeper Than Rap?
Yeah, that was. I was going to bring that up because we all sitting there watching. He's like, yeah, I took a position. You know, I was take a position.
That nigga boy Ross is a y'all nigga boy Hall of Famer off this,
bro.
But we all watched it though. We all watched it.
Because who paid for that? Because the special is basically like you wait 30 minutes with a lot of commercials for the final 15 minutes for him to actually say I was a CEO or not. So you're waiting on bated breath. And he just like, yeah, I took a position, but that don't mean I was always. Basically, he was like, I wasn't a clean CEO. I was like,
how do you get off without fucking yourself over? Basically,
like the commercial was so crazy because it said the truth is far more sinister.
And like again, you're right. Like this usually rolls out the week of the album, so the label has a hand in, of course, putting these specials together. Like they did, of course. I mean, like Kanye had someone like a MTV Unplugged special on BET when Graduation dropped. Like they would put those specials out to coincide with the release of the album. And once again, everything is so like it's not the monoculture anymore, so everything's just broken down. You don't really see anything streamlined, even to the point of like what Amazon Music is doing with these concerts. You don't really see that too often. So
yeah, I mean, it would be cool. Like I think Weeknd did something cool where for Dawn FM he had like little video cutouts for Amazon where he would just do singles and it would just be him performing the singles. Do that, but have interviews in between it. Like, what are you thinking about? Like, and I mean, to his credit, I think Weeknd lets us into what's going on in his albums far more than most artists do. Because he'll literally go on and be like, okay, this is my new era. This is the look. This is everything. And he'll interact with people, but like no one really does that anymore in the rap space. And I think that's just always been so interesting to me for the past 6-7 years that you can't sit Playboi Carti down and say, where's the album at? You know what I'm saying? Or if you do, he'll give you an answer that's sufficient. That's not just, you're just, vibing. You know what I'm saying? Like some perked up answer. You know what I'm saying? Like people used to like the A&Rs used to be with the artists at the Breakfast Club saying, okay, you got these, they're going to ask you these questions. You have to give these answers. You know what I'm saying? Like this is just what it is. And I think there's a part of that that's missing. And that's why And Friends to me is terrible. It ultimately comes around to And Friends. Because it basically allows you to skirt past any responsibility of actually talking about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like I think that's a big part of artist development for me.
And at the bare minimum, I'd say thank you to the streamers that are actually trying to get something out of that from like I don't think they would consider themselves as journalists outside of like a few of them, but at least some trying to have the artists on and ask them something, because it's very rare that we get them from these artists in that case. But then sometimes when they try, you get a Cardi Aiden type situation where he's there for 5 minutes and he's wearing a mask and he's like, yeah, I'm coming soon. And then just runs off. And that's $250,000 down the drain because he gave you like a 5-minute interview and then he's gone.
Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate you. And then leaves. Wearing a GIMP mask. Fucking crazy, man. Just think about like your favorite rap interviews or your favorite interviews from that time. I think obviously we're always going to gravitate to the Nas meltdown. Well, they called it a meltdown at that point, but it's like, like imagine we get that with Kendrick where it's just like, he's just tired of all the stuff. Like you could, the through line's there. He could literally go on radio and say, I was just tired of seeing these people all buddy and we were supposed to be at war with each other and I had to shake it up.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's like, okay, bet.
We'll take it. Right. We'll take that.
I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? I'll take it. And he said, well, you know what? I I noticed that these people had problems and, they just tired of the whack shit. I'm like, bro, like the most frustrating part about this shit to me is like the by proxy shit, like on the Future album where it's like Prodigy narrating the album. And I was just like that's just such a cop out because it allowed both artists to kind of be like, well, what do you think it means?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
you come at the end of Future, like, yeah, I agree, Prodigy, and then just go to the next song. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I agree.
We're the best in this business,
right?
Like it's like left up. That's why I just feel like it like. There's a level of finesse that's missing from this shit right now. And like, I think of let's go back to Ross Hot 97 interview. We don't do pushbacks interview. I remember texting you A plus like he is talking that shit right now.
Right, that's classic. That is classic.
Like Ross at the height of it. Have you heard that interview, Mark?
Around the time that Jeezy was about to put out 103 and it didn't drop to like November.
Yeah, it wasn't it like the December before?
Because when did it come out?
Announced
12 or 13?
Yeah, like end of 2012, if I recall.
Right.
Supposed to come out.
And that's what
announced it a good minute ago.
Or 3 years, excuse me. Yeah, whenever they went on that tour, that Drake like tore his quad or whatever, they were already talking about TM103.
Where is you can't even find it no more.
What, 103?
No, we don't do pushbacks.
Oh, right. We don't do pushbacks. Yeah, that's the thing. I think at that age, I wish in my youth. Oh, it was end of 2011 that 103 came out.
Oh wow. Okay.
But I wish at that age when I was trying to get hot 97 links, ones that would get pulled back in a couple of, I wish I had the mindset just be like, let me record these just in case. 15 years from now, people forget a lot of the stories that were going down, because there was hot stories in 07. Obviously, I think one of the hotter ones is pretty well documented because Cam had his camera on when he was talking to 50, and that's on Now What TV and stuff like that.
The thing about that people forget is that Jimmy called in later that day, like on Angie's show after all that happened. Yeah. It was kind of like being neutral about it, and that kind of like planted the seeds for what happened a few weeks later when he walks to that door in Rap City, during G Unit week. So you're right. There's things like that are lost. People don't even remember that part. So.
I tried to go on Misinfo's site because where I know that was at, it is gone.
Wow, Misinfo.tv, right? Wow.
All of those interviews are gone. Like I'm like, there is a level of preservation that we are losing, that people cannot find interviews like this, because for anyone that's never heard the Rick Ross, we don't do pushback shit. Like in a lot of shit we talk about, it almost sounds like it's like counterculture. It almost sounds like it didn't ever happen and we're just making it up. That's what makes me feel crazy about it, because he goes on Hot 97. It's literally wintertime. And this is like after basically he's at the height of his powers. He said, I got 2 singles for you. And that was I Love My Bitches and You the Boss. And those were the 2 singles he had. And I was like, because I remember Plus was like, you were like, you didn't like both singles. You were just like, both singles, they were like, they weren't gonna move the needle.
Yeah. He blew his load on Rich Forever. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Because it was they weren't gonna work. But I Love My Bitches was a cool track. He was rapping his ass off. It was just a moment. He goes up there and he just like, they literally ask him, so what's up with all the stuff they're hearing about Jeezy? And then Rick Ross just goes off. He says Jeezy was doing things that I would consider less than G. And I was like, oh wow. He's like, I would consider it less than G. And the thing is like, I feel like Ross actually had a point there, because again, he was actually explaining his side of the story. And I feel like Jeezy didn't explain his side of the story because he didn't have a point to why he was dissing Ross. He had no point. It was his literal point was, you're taking the BMF name and you was never in it.
Yeah, that was it. You heard BMF's like, well, hold on, what? That's exactly what. That's the origin of that shit to me, man.
And I think at the time, like for as popular as he was, I could say he's trending downward, but like I feel like if he would have just released the album, he would have been back up to where he was, and he did after 103. But 103, he got him pushed back. He says, "My new album coming out. God Forgives I Know it's coming." Literally, he said it was coming out like 3 weeks or some shit like that. I was like, wait, what? And I think the story goes at that point was that Def Jam had no clue he was about to do all of that shit.
Yep.
And this was when God Forgives I Don't was Rich Forever at that point. So the Rich Forever that we got as a mixtape was God Forgives I Don't at that point. And he said, I got that. It had those 2 tracks on it, the 2 singles on it. Yep, so he says, we don't do pushbacks over here. Def Jam. I basically said, I run the building. He also was implying that Jeezy was like running to people and like complaining and telling on him and stuff like that. And then literally, what was it? Like a day, 2 days later, or that weekend, he has the seizure.
Yeah.
And you don't hear from Rick Ross for like a month or two. And the big triumphant return for him, I don't think people remember this. Like the big triumphant return was Rich Forever, was that tape dropping on January 6th or 8th or whatever it was. But that interview kind of fueled the narrative, and then all of that stuff, like, because he would go back and do several other interviews after that. And I'm like, that's what was missing from, or that's what's missing
context.
From exactly. Context matters. Like one thing that kills me about this era is that like we're leaving it to academics and we're leaving it to like all these accounts who are connecting the dots, and this is what More M's was about, and this is what this shit was about, and it's just like,
right.
I can't take it serious because it's not coming from the artist's mouth, and I think that's just a level of like non-connectivity that I just don't like about this era right now.
Do you think all the speculation is why we're here? Why we get the aggregate tweets that say, "Oh man, Pharrell just dropped a record off the Minion soundtrack.
Oh my God.
Is he dissing Drake? Because he's talking about a guy that's lying."
To Despicable Me 4 in stores, July 16, whatever the fuck it was, July 16th. Again, this way you get tweets where it's like, he put Dave Free at the first name. I'm like,
God. That pissed me off, man. Because it was like, it's only his manager, his right-hand man and business partner. Like,
we're in dunk culture. Like where things that are not a troll or a dunk become a dunk if you allow it to be. That's why we're just in a dangerous place in time right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's really scary. Like on all ends, on all fronts. I'm literally seeing like my favorite genre turned into Pizzagate. You know what I'm saying? Like
seriously though, like it's so many Fox News angles and plots. I mean, in this beef alone, in this battle alone, like there's so many. Well, I'm telling you what he is, folks. He's a pedophile.
Yeah.
You know, where is this coming from? And you're right. We talk about this offline. Like we're seeing OG after OG, you know, esteemed rapper after esteemed rapper. Look at this shit with a side eye. Like, what is this really about? You know what I mean? Because it's not really a lyrical tour de force on either side. Yeah. It's turning the Shade Room TMZ fodder. And that's where I'm like, all right, man, y'all got it.
No, I mean, I know we're deviating from your show notes, Mark. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay because it definitely feeds into a lot of the music conversation that I think does affect how we view and talk about music right now. Plus, I was going to ask, even though this is completely, it's a little bit outside of hip hop, but can you take a look at a moment or an era like 2011, 2012 and say that maybe artists, maybe a decade ago, were a little bit more open towards open conversation? Because last week, it's outside of rap, but it was a little bit of a controversial topic where you had Tyla on The Breakfast Club. She hears questions that she obviously does not have the best prepared answers for, looks over to her help in the back, and they're like, yeah, let's skip this over to the next question. This was something that we decided before the interview that this was not somewhere that we would go. You tried it. That's great. It was cute. Let's try and move on to something different. Do you see that a lot more these days than back in like a decade plus?
You always had artists that didn't want to answer this question or answer that question. And I going back to the time period you're referring to, like 2011, 2012, and when you started to see like, okay, they answered it on Breakfast Club, so why would you ask it again type of deal? You know what I mean? So you always had that element, but it goes back to what Fa was just talking about too, where artists were more conditioned to have the conversation. If they didn't answer before and you asked the question that maybe was very topical, something just happened yesterday, they were more inclined to answer it. Now it's just like not even thought about, because even going back to, once again, 2011, 2012, especially 2012 is that pivot of where Chief Keef came into play and hip hop became a whole new thing because a whole new generation is being involved. So they handle everything on social media. Everything was on Twitter, everything. People learn how to talk different because of how Chicago was talking on social media. So once that happened and people started to communicate in their own ways, now we're all the way down. So like you said, they'll hop on Kai Cenat stream or whoever stream and have a conversation. Yeah. Not really a formal one, but just talk about some stuff. That it lost in that time period from then till now is that accountability and that structure. And quite simply, like the labels don't have any control really. Like the labels at the mercy of these, these managers and whatever they feel like doing. Yeah. There's no A&R, there's no rep that's going to to the best of their ability, they're going to do it. Don't get me wrong. To the best of their ability, they're going to do it. But 9 times out of 10, these artists do not want to be bothered with the standard interview or none of that stuff.